Hello again, and welcome to Football Manager Roleplay, a project where we create a player using the FM pregame editor, give him a potential ability of 200, and see if he will become the greatest American footballer ever. We will simply observe the progression of this player, Henry Markle, from the age of 15 to hopefully his eventual retirement. This is a world building exercise where Football Manager provides the events and we build a story around those events. Let's take a look at Henry Marshall's current slide. As you can see, he has now moved up to 132 in current rating, plus 2 from the previous episode. We are now in May 2026, and he is one game away from moving into the offseason. This slide shows that Henry has done quite well for himself at Sunderland. We still have his home club Liverpool's season to finish, and we also have the 2026 World Cup in the offseason. Will Henry get a selection with the U.S. men's national team? Let's move forward and take a look. Okay, you can now see that we are at May 30th, 2026, and let me tell you something, there has a lot that has gone on this month. Things didn't really go the way I thought they were going to go, so let's see what we saw was so surprising. First up, there was a game on Wednesday the 6th where Liverpool faced West Ham at Anfield. How did that game go? Yep, Liverpool struggled to draw in front of 62,500 people. 2-2 result, and they may have just given up the Premier title right there. With that loss, well, was it a loss? But it might as well have been a loss. A single point. And Liverpool closes to within 1 point to Tottenham. But they only have 2 more games left to play. Tottenham has 3 games. It's Tottenham's title to lose at this point. Tottenham can't rest, but they do have Man City to worry about. And they're hoping that Liverpool will play spoilers to Man City because Man City is Liverpool's next match on Saturday. Next up for Sunderland. Sunderland's at number 13. They will be taking on number 22 Swansea at May 9th. And that match to Swansea was a life and death match. If they didn't beat Sunderland, they needed to beat Sunderland. It's one of their only hopes of escaping certain relegation to League One. Well, if there was a football god, he was on Swansea's side. As Swansea avoid relegation on the final day of the season, the only on-target shots they made in the game, they all got past the keeper, and the final was Swansea 3, Sunderland 1. This potentially is Marshall's final appearance for Sunderland. And he was pretty much a passing and tackling machine. His match rating was much better than anyone else at Sunderland. There we go. Sunderland will finish the season in 14th place. A real disappointment to Sunderland fans that thought at the beginning of the year they could at least finish upper half. That same day, on the 9th, Man City, at least briefly, go to the top. They come to Liverpool and they beat Liverpool 2-1. Phil Foden's goal gives the 86th minute, it gives them the victory, and Liverpool now will not repeat as Premier League champions. It's a disappointing finish. Almost, it's going to be a very disappointing finish one way or the other, the 2025-26 season. With 1 game to go, their next opponent is at 20th place, Bournemouth, the very bottom team of the Premier League. With 1 game to go, even if they win that game, it's not going to be enough points to take the title. Liverpool is now fighting for a place in the Champions League next year. So what happened is on May the 12th, Henry Marshall was released on vacation. Now, he had a meeting with Dean Smith before returning to the United States. And Smith told him that the last few games he had played showed that, quote, Dean Smith told Henry, "You can play in this league or any other league." And he said on behalf of Sunderland that, quote, "We will do everything within our power to bring you back next season." He briefly mentioned Jürgen Klopp's troubles at Liverpool and said, who knows? He may not even be back next season. And with that, Marshall left for Shreveport, Louisiana. Now, before he even returned home, USA manager, let's see, there we go. USA manager Brian Schmetzer had listed his 55-man preliminary squad for the World Cup. And Henry Marshall was on that list. It was a high honor for a 19-year-old. But, being on the preliminary squad wasn't enough. He had to make the final cut. So on May 16th, he went to Atlanta, Georgia to begin training with the U.S. men's national team. That same day, Liverpool would face Aston Villa at Wembley for the FA Cup. And they do it. They beat Aston Villa 2-0 at Wembley. Liverpool takes the FA Cup. It's their third trophy this season, along with the UEFA Super Cup and the FA Community Shield. Luis Diaz, as we can see right here, 8.3, had an assist. He was the man of the match. 7 attempts on goal, and he had 2 assists, and both of those assists for this game. Congratulations to him. Now, Sunderland supporters released their awards for 2025-2026. Now, Henry was not named in the best 11. There's the overall, well, actually, this is the overall best 11. He wasn't going to be named in that. But he did receive the award for Young Player of the Season. As for young players, Henry Marshall was the youngest player at training camp in Atlanta by 5 months. Marshall's strategy was to keep his head down and not get distracted and make the final cut. That cut would be announced late in the evening on May 23rd, 2026. And let's see if we can find out some information about that. They should say something here. And, Liverpool's Jürgen Klopp, he's under fire. And Alex, head of youth development, Alex Inglethorpe, head of youth development, he backs up his man. Saying, there should not be any consideration that you're going to somehow get rid of Jürgen Klopp. The USA squad is announced then on late in the evening, May 23rd, 2026. And Marshall was actually the very first person to talk to Brian Schmetzer. He would bring people in as he needed to bring them in. That was early that afternoon. His first player to talk to him. And the very first words out of Brian Schmetzer's mouth were, "Henry, I'm sorry to tell you that you will not be traveling with us to the World Cup." Schmetzer also said a bunch of other nice words, but Henry never heard any of them. He was devastated. Schmetzer said, "This was a very difficult decision for us to make. I don't want you to think that your contributions to American soccer aren't valued, either here or in Europe." End quote. Now, Henry just wanted to know why he wasn't chosen. And Schmetzer told him, quote, "You don't have enough experience playing at this level or under these circumstances. After a few Nations League or Gold Cup appearances, you'll be ready. But you're not ready now. Not for a World Cup. I'm sorry." After that, what could Henry do? I mean, he went back to Shreveport in a depressed state. How could he complain? I mean, there's Johnny. Let me see if we can find some information about him. We have Otis Sowie, USA squad announced. Johnny was dropped. Johnny, a CONCACAF Young Player of the Year. He couldn't make the U.S. team. So all he could do is go back to Louisiana and hang out with his sister, Maggie Marshall, who was coming home from Duke for summer vacation. She had just finished her junior year in college, her junior year. Unlike Henry, however, Maggie loved coming back home. And she told him that when she graduated, she would probably not stay in North Carolina, and she would get a degree and find a job just far enough away from Shreveport. Hopefully 1 or 2 hours away, she said. Close enough to come home, but not close enough for my parents to be at my butt all day. No casual visits. He was surprised to find that she knew all about what he had been doing at Sunderland. She said, I keep up with them all the time. I don't watch every Sunderland game. I had exams and I had homework, but I watched enough of them. And that was a great end to the season. I even have your jersey. I tell my classmates about you. It was very touching. Henry resolved to purchase a Duke College sweatshirt so he could brag in the same way about his sister. Henry said, just don't tell anyone in the English press that you call me Clyde. The press give you a nickname and that's yours for life. So, Marshall spent Sunday morning, May 24th, pulling out his VPN and watching Liverpool play Bournemouth, the bottom team of the league. And you can see what's going to be happening soon here. Yep, it was a 1-1 draw. They draw against the worst team in the Premier League. His parents were at the grocery store. Liverpool needed a win to secure their Champions League position at this point. Instead, Bournemouth drew the 1-1. This was Bournemouth's final goodbye to the Premier League before ascending to the Championship. Over Liverpool's final 3 games this season, they had 2 points to show for it. Klopp said after the game, we put out a plan for this team, but they simply would not follow it. There is no excuse for losing a Champions League spot. You can be great, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't play like you're great. That same afternoon, May 24th, 2026, Henry's phone blew up. Or rather, the Liverpool youth chat group that he was subscribed to blew up. Fuck all, Kenny Pierman posted. Klopp just got canned. There it is. Jürgen Klopp, fired by Liverpool. Only Maggie was with them when he rushed to his computer and found Sky Sports, which he could access through VPN protocol. Klopp had been given the sack by the board at 6:45 p.m. UK time, not long after that loss. It wasn't that Klopp had lost the team, it was the poor placement of Liverpool, and it had to be blamed on somebody. And that blame had to belong to the manager. The talking heads were talking about Klopp's possible replacements. Julian Nagelsmann, who had just been fired at FC Bayern, he was available. Ralph Hasenhüttl at Crystal Palace was mentioned, but he came out with a statement saying that he wasn't interested. Theodore Whitmore, who had been canned the previous year in November at America, he was also being considered to be a possible acquisition. And there we go. This is going to take us all the way to the 30th. People signing deals. But now, Liverpool, Jürgen Klopp. Klopp had been at Liverpool for how long? He had been there for 2015 to 2026 as head coach. Great people manager, but they just couldn't get it done. And now Klopp is out on his ass. Let's go ahead and look at the final standings. The Premier League. Man City comes in. They take it as Tottenham can't pull together in the last part of the season. Man City, Chelsea, Tottenham, and Aston Villa all have earned Champions League spots. Liverpool and Newcastle in the Europa League. Arsenal in the Conference League. And another Europa League club here in Leicester. Brentford is relegated. Middlesbrough relegated. And Bournemouth relegated. Okay, a little bit, because there are a lot of hirings and firings going on that are filling up the social feed here, because I put Liverpool coverage to extensive coverage, so this takes us all the way up to June the 7th. So some more news. It looks like, let's see if we can find it here. See all these signings here, retained list, all kinds of signings. Liverpool qualifies for the UEFA Champions League by securing a top 5 position in the Premier League. And I think this is because I think the top 2 nations and coefficient in the Champions League get an extra spot. So that may be how Liverpool managed to slide in to the Champions League after all. There will certainly be high expectations for their new manager when he's hired. Let's figure out who won the Champions League. Who was that? We'll go here. And indeed, it was Arsenal and Man City playing in Johan Cruyff Arena in Amsterdam. And it went all the way down to penalty shots, as we can see here. To 5. Jorginho hit, miss. Macon here needed to take that penalty shot. He is Brazilian. He won it for Arsenal. Now, I don't know how many Champions Leagues they have now. Let's see. It's their very first. Maybe it is. Let's look through the overview here. No competitions. Yep, their very, very first ever Champions League, Arsenal. Now the champions of Europe. Let's see who also won the awards for Champions League. News here. Erling Haaland, he's the Golden Boot winner. Here is the Dream Team. We have 6 Man City players, 3 from Arsenal. Calcedo, Chelsea and Mbappe over here from Paris. Lewis, Manchester City's Rico Lewis, he is the young player of the season. And Saka, Bukayo Saka from Arsenal, he is the Champions League player of the season. So there's all the hardware being awarded to various Champions League winners. Now let's go over here, go back there. And the very first, there's a game in June against Portugal, the United States. Portugal comes to visit the U.S. You see all these signings that are filling up the feed here. But the USA in a disappointing collapse. This was NRG Stadium in Houston. Normally, Henry Marshall would be there, but this is supposed to be the team that the USA is taking to the World Cup, which takes place in about a week from June 7th. And this is definitely not a good sign for the USA losing this friendly to Portugal. This episode was some world building and 2 major breakthroughs. The first was that in March 2026, a synthetic human genome was created. Potential applications from a synthetic human genome include growing transplantable human organs, engineering immunity to viruses, engineering cancer resistance, and accelerating vaccine and drug development using human cells and organs. This also makes it possible, well, at least theoretically possible, to create a human being without any biological parents. The second development comes from May 2026. Robotic hands began to match human capabilities. The 5-finger versions have advanced firmness and flexibility. But when the restriction to have the hands look like human hands is removed, the hands, if you can call them that, are even more reliable. New technology will have major impacts for both prosthetics and manufacturing. And that's it for this edition of Football Manager Roleplay. Henry Marshall misses out on a World Cup selection. And Jürgen Klopp is fired at Liverpool. And in June, the World Cup. What will be the fate of Henry, or of Liverpool, or of the USA national team? Anyway, if you like what you see or hear, please click the like and subscribe buttons. Until next time.